welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the Tanyuin Academy series, and this is English Nerd. So I recently made part one of a two-part series. It's not even a series, right? Just two, but a two-part series about Shakespeare vocabulary that you need to know in order to appreciate Shakespeare's greatest plays. And so I assume that you've probably watched the first one, or it didn't have the word you were looking for. And so today is part two. It's the rest of the vocabulary that I think is really a great baseline for understanding Shakespeare's plays better. Now, is this comprehensive as far as Shakespeare's vocabulary goes? No, it isn't, because it would be a much longer video. But I think that Shakespeare can be more accessible than people assume if you're just willing to put in a little bit of legwork and learn a handful of new words. Suddenly everything starts kind of opening up. So yeah, without further ado, let's continue on in this list. So before it was an, as in if, through ifaith, which I counted just because it's a phrase that's used a lot. So moving on here, knave is the first one. Knave is a really common word that Shakespeare uses for insults, and it's fun to understand the breadth of Shakespeare's insults. So a knave is a scoundrel or a rogue. It's just a synonym for that, basically. Next is mark. You guys know, I'm sure, what that means in terms of a noun, like making a mark or something, but it is a verb in Shakespeare that is used in a way that we don't often hear. So mark means pay attention to. So the ghost, when he appears in Hamlet, he says, "Mark me." Ophelia says, "I pray you mark," later on in the play, when she wants people to pay attention to her. So mark. Next one is meet. Meet is a word that comes up a lot. Like many of these words, there is a meaning that we're used to, and then there's an additional meaning that Shakespeare uses. And not only Shakespeare, but many people around that time in England, and even through, I would say, the early 1800s, you still see some of these words used this way. So meet is an adjective that means fitting or appropriate. So I think it meet that I do this. Hamlet uses that word when he announces that he's going to pretend to be insane. I don't know how meet that is, but that is what that word means. Methinks is the next one. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Yes, a lot of my examples are from Hamlet, and I regret nothing. Methinks means just it seems to me. Methinks that's not true. It seems to me that that's not the case. All right, the next one is nay, N-A-Y. That just means no. It's a really common way of people to say no in Shakespeare's plays, so keep your eye open for that. Next one is office, another word that we see all the time. In fact, in the video that goes with this one, the first half of the alphabet, I kept making all these office references, as in The Office. But Shakespeare uses this word not only to mean that, but also more often to mean a task or a duty or a responsibility. So it's your office to do this. So that's what that means. Next one is perchance, one of those words that we hear in Shakespeare parodies and things like that, but it's not often defined. So perchance means maybe, like perchance 'twill walk again. They say in Hamlet, maybe it will walk again. The ghost, that is. I mean, I'm writing a Hamlet retelling, so of course Hamlet's always on the brain. Next one is quoth or quoth. I've heard it pronounced both ways, and I think it's one of those things where it doesn't particularly matter. It just means said, So, or says. So if somebody's telling a story and they say, oh yes, somebody came up to me, for certainly, quoth he. Certainly, he says. That's what that means. It's connected to the idea of a quote, right? Next one is sirrah. Sirrah is like it's like saying sir, but not quite as formal. It's like a little bit less respectful. It's less respectful, but you're kind of saying the same thing. So to lower born people normally. Okay, next one is straight. Again, a word that we can use in our everyday lives in a variety of ways, but there's another definition Shakespeare uses that you should be aware of. Straight can mean straight away. So, get to it straight. Get to it straight away is what that means. Next one is strumpet. A strumpet is another term of abuse, an insult that you hear in Shakespeare, and strumpet is a prostitute. You see the word in Shakespeare all the time as a derogatory term, generally toward women. You have, Desdemona is called that, even though she doesn't deserve it in Othello. Okay, next is suit, spelled like a suit. But again, a new definition with Shakespeare that you should be aware of is that a suit is a formal request or a petition. So in Othello, when Cassio is trying to get back into Othello's good graces, Cassio makes a suit to Desdemona to put in a good word for him. That's kind of how you would use that. Next, we have taper. So you might know the word as in to taper off or something like that, but it can be a noun. In Shakespeare, when you see this word, it's often a noun, and it means a candle. So at the beginning of Othello, lots of Othello examples too. Look at me and mixing up my tragedies a little bit. In Othello, at the very beginning, when Iago and Rodrigo talk to Brabantio, Desdemona's father, Brabantio is super upset that Desdemona has run off to get married, and he goes, "A taper, taper, I need tapers." He needs candles, he needs light, because he needs to track down this guy that she married. Next, I have thee and thou. I'm counting that on the same line. Thee and thou, I'm not going to get into the different, like the nominative case or things like that in this video, but know that when characters use the terms thee and thou, as in you, that is the informal way of talking to somebody. Using you, the synonym, is considered the more formal way of talking. So if you are talking to somebody who is lower born than you, say you're a king, you can call anybody thee and thou if you want to. But if you are a peasant who is speaking to a king, then you would say you if you addressed that person. It took me years to realize that was the informal, and now I kind of want to go back and take a look at some plays that I've known for a long time but didn't actually have that information for. Okay, next is want. So want, we think of want as in something that we desire, right? But want, as both a noun and a verb, means lack or need. It's not want in the sense that we think of it. It's want as in you do not have something that you absolutely need. You're in want. That would be you're in need. Same thing. Okay, next there is warrant. Warrant is a verb most of the time in Shakespeare, and it means to promise or to assure. So I'll warrant you. I'll promise you that that's the case. There are other ways that he uses this word, but this is one that not everybody knows. So I figured I would throw that in as well. Okay, next is a big one. It is wherefore. So many people know the line from Romeo and Juliet. Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? When I was younger, I thought that she was saying, where are you, Romeo, as Juliet says she's on the balcony looking down and not seeing him. But wherefore actually does not mean where. Wherefore means why. Why are you Romeo? Why is your name this name of a rival family? So wherefore means why. Next is wont. There's no apostrophe there. It's a different word. So wont is a verb, and it means to be accustomed to or to be in the habit of. So as he was wont to do, as he was in the habit of doing, as was his custom. Those are all things that mean the same idea. Next is wot, W-O-T, which is kind of a fun word, and that just means to know. So, God wot that it, he knows that that's true. It can mean some other things, but for the most part, that's what you're going to see. Wot means no. I wot. Okay, and then finally is zounds, or I think I've heard it's zounds and some other weird pronunciations, but zounds is the most common that I've come across, and it's the way that it looks. It's a curse, actually a mild curse in Shakespeare's time, and it means God's wounds. It's like just smooshed together, so zounds, you see. Anytime you see a Z, it's not normally a Z. Normally it's an S. But if it's S and then some sort of like body part, then it's the same idea. It's a mild oath that is like a part of Christ. What was I reading? I think it's in 12th Night that they use the word slids, like God's eyelids. So it gets a little unusual because we don't use those terms anymore. But that's it. That's all, folks. Now you know some of the big ones. Perchance, wherefore. You have some mild oaths, all that stuff. So I hope that this list is helpful for you, especially if you are a Shakespeare newbie and you are going into these plays not really understanding. My hope for you is that this little Shakespeare dictionary gives you a firm ground to stand on, so that even if you come across other words that you might not be familiar with, you know enough that you can figure out what's going on, you can figure out what people are saying, and you can follow and enjoy the plot. That's my evil plan. So don't forget to subscribe for more English nerdy goodness. Like this video if you like it. Hit those notifications because obviously I post weekly, if not more than that, and you want to be the very first to get big news. All right, that is all for today. I'll see you very soon. Bye.